Hello everybody and welcome to Gene's Reviews from a regular dude, where I do trailer reactions, I react to YouTube videos, I review YouTube channels. Basically, I just do whatever the hell I want. True scary stories that are sure to give you nightmares. From terrifying bedtime stories to stories to tell around a campfire. Here are two of the scariest tales you'll ever hear. Number 1. One step ahead of the Reaper. Like everyone in this world, I will one day meet my Maker. But for now, I stay one step ahead of the Reaper. He's been chasing me ever since I was a little boy, when I nearly died in the middle of a fever due to an infection. The doctor went as far as to prepare my family for my demise. Terror rings true when death is imminent. I remember lying in my bed, drenched with sweat as the light in the room darkened to pitch black. My teeth chattered. I felt a frosty breeze creeping from my toes right up to my small head. Then I saw him. A tall, frightening, hooded specter descending from the darkest shadows in what I thought was my bedroom. What terrified me the most was his skeletal face and the dry, thorny tongue lolling about over his jagged teeth. I screamed as the roar of what seemed like 1,000 tornadoes splintered my eardrums while he raised his scythe. Whether it was my lust for life or my childish impotence, I turned my back on him and yelled, "It's my life!" I didn't know at the time that I'd cheated death. Suddenly the lights were back on and I was screaming on the floor. My mom raced in and scooped me up. I tried to tell my parents about what had happened, but they all assumed the fever had made me hallucinate. From that day forward, I had an incredible understanding that I was in control of my destiny. I knew deep down in my soul that the only reason people died was due to them giving up and losing the fight. I was afforded the opportunity to cheat death many times over the years, despite my attempts to stay safe. When I was a teenager, doing what reckless teenagers are apt to do, speeding my car, he returned. It was a rainy night, and the car crashed into a huge tree. I was barely conscious when I heard the familiar tornadoes. My eardrums pulsed in pain as the pitch-black darkness tried to consume me while my bloodied head tried to lift up. I remember gripping the steering wheel and through gritted teeth screaming, "It's my life. It's not my time." I saw the Reaper glaring at me with his black eyes through the windshield, his enraged skull against the glass. After butting his skull angrily against the glass, he disappeared, and I was suddenly dragged out of the burning car. One of the creepiest encounters was when I was in my late 20s, carelessly walking through a bad neighborhood. I was checking out an isolated section of scrubland next to a railroad track when I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around to face my attacker, I felt the searing pain of a long blade being thrust into my back. A flash of cold panic rushed throughout my nervous system as the attacker plucked my wallet from my pants pocket. Then, the deafening tornadoes rushed into my ears while the impenetrable darkness washed over me. The Reaper appeared in front of me, striding towards me with his huge scythe held high by a skeletal hand. He seemed to be mocking me as an evil laugh broke through the tornadoes in my ears. "Now you're mine." He dragged me up with the other bony hand, bringing my face only an inch away from his terrible face. I felt his sandpaper tongue scrape my cheek as the bottomless pits that were his eyes bore into my soul, screaming, "I'll never be yours," into the Reaper's face. I saw a flash of light as he yelled his outrage, "No!" Since then, I've been on constant lookout. My wife recently gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. The other night I could have sworn I saw a shadow hovering over them both in the darkness. The Shadow and the Fountain in the Mist. Several decades before our family immigrated to the U.S., my grandfather was killed in action during World War II. My mother was very close to him and once every 5 years would travel back to Italy for his memorial. The family would celebrate his memory by throwing a huge weekend-long party, which was also considered a reunion. When I was 19, I traveled with her for the first time, as our family were blue-collar workers and not able to afford multiple airfares. Seeing as ghost stories were far from my mind, what happened after we arrived still amazes me to this day. It all started on the first night when we arrived in Italy, which seems like eons ago. Mom and I got to my aunt's place and had a quick supper. I went off to bed while Mom and my aunt caught up. Spending several hours tossing and turning, I eventually got up and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. It's hard for me to explain, but I felt that I just had to go for a walk without telling Mom for some unknown reason. I got dressed and snuck out the back, keeping to the shadows and making my way to the street. My heart was racing and I didn't know why. The streets were empty and so incredibly silent that I wondered if I was dreaming. I felt drawn along a particular path and soon found myself in the square, which was shrouded in a dense mist. Something about the mist made me feel that I wasn't alone. As I walked through the square, I began to see a large fountain in the center, so I started to walk over to it, like an excited child. When I was about 10 feet away, I saw a shadow come around from behind it. My blood froze, making me stop in my tracks as I watched the figure seemingly drink from the fountain. It sounds strange, but I felt like I knew the shadowy figure, so I took a few more steps towards the fountain. I gasped when the figure suddenly vanished right before my eyes. I walked around the fountain and even called out in Italian, asking if anyone was there. A warm sensation washed over me, making me feel protected. Even though the scene was obviously scary with the gray mist and the streetlights, I felt protected somehow. When I started to walk away, the hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I turned around and the shadow was back at the fountain, having a drink. Feeling safe, I walked back and called out again, but it vanished for the second time. It dawned on me that I was a witness to the paranormal. I pretended to start walking off, feeling like the shadowy ghost was playing tricks on me or might have been shy. Then I quickly turned and rushed back, surprised when I saw that the figure was a soldier. Before he vanished, he smiled, and the lovely cloak of warmth swarmed over me. Somehow I knew that he wouldn't reappear until after I was gone for good. So I reluctantly went back to my aunt's. When I came in the back door, Mom and my aunt were rinsing out their wine glasses at the sink. Mom was surprised and told me off for leaving the house without telling them. I couldn't help smiling. When they asked me what I was smiling for, I told them about my experience at the fountain and how excited I was to have come face to face with a ghost, and that it wasn't as frightening as I thought it would be. Both Mom and my aunt started asking many questions about what he looked like. Then my aunt went and grabbed a photo album. I was stunned, as it was the same man that I'd seen. It was my grandfather. We were all amazed that his spirit still haunted his favorite spot. It also explained the warm feeling he gave me. Far from being afraid, I will treasure that experience for the rest of my life. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hashtag Mean Gene, all that fun stuff. And I will see you next time.